Hello guys, and welcome back to the drawing of this week. And today is Wednesday, and you know what that means, that we're going to be colouring in what we've been drawing all week. And as always guys, I've got my Copic marker pens. These are poor man's version of them, but yeah, they're pretty good. They're kind of like a Sharpie marker, but they're with Copic marker ink, so you can sort of put in layers to put in different shadings and oversaturate areas and without damaging your pages, which I thought when I found them was absolutely brilliant because they're a cheap they're a cheap version of Copic markers. They do run out really quickly, but that's because obviously they're cheap and you can reuse. You can go and buy another pack because you've just run out, sort of thing. So yeah, that's what I've been doing with these ones. I've also got these felt tips, but you got this side here, and you've also got if I turn the other side, you've got the other side as well. They're double-sided. They're actually very good. Again, these are starting to run out, but they're only come from the same place. All that felt tips, but they're really good once they start running out. To put shading in, if you don't want to you don't want to cover the whole thing in one color, you can just sort of gently sort of go over it and give the shading effect, like I kind of did here with the hands. Let's give you a thing down here. I'm actually using my little easel today to draw on. My hand is still knackered, and I think it's because of the way I'm holding my pen and things like that, and I'm holding the pin. It's all working from the wrist. And yeah, as you artists out there know, that if you work from the wrist, you get knackered very quickly. But what I was saying about this is you can put a little bit of shading in there, because I've got rid of all the construction lines and pencil that I had here originally, apart from a few areas where I thought, actually, no, I think I'll leave it there. But most of it has been removed for pencil. It's gone over with ink and a little bit of Copic marker. You can see the ink pens on the side here, or the inking pens that I use. I'll get rid of that because nobody used to see that. Yeah, we've got the 7.0, which I used yesterday, and the Sharpie sort of thing out of the pack of here. Out of here. That's yeah, it's pretty good to use, I must say. That's really good for like fine lining. And again, if you want to not have any bleeding effect, if I was to use these ones here, they would probably bleed once I start putting another color on. But they're all right for putting over something else, because you've already put your original color in. So you're just sort of highlighting what you've already done. It's kind of what these are. They're kind of like a highlighted thing. Where they're not highlighters, but I use them as a highlight sort of thing. But yeah, we're going to be getting on with that today. Hopefully you'll be able to see what I'm doing, but normally I have the page down on flat, but like I said, my hand's hurting today, so I'm trying a new way of doing things. I'm going to put this down one more if I can, but I can't. Okay, and when I've got my easel, it's only a little standalone, put on your lap, put anywhere you want to put easel. It's really good. It's definitely something one of my artist friends years ago gave me, and I haven't looked back since. I can use it for crafting on. I say crafting when I use my modeling clay, stuff like this. When I use my modeling clay, when I create stuff. This one here is for my son. I am planning on making something like that on Thursday. Well, something with clay. Not sure what, because I'm running out and I can't really buy more at the moment. But that is going to be my thing. You can just quickly have a look on my fridge there. That's what we've been creating, all the Spider-Man and the Thor's hammers there. That's what I've been creating past Fridays. Thursday, tomorrow, will be digital art. But it won't be digital art for this. It will be digital art as in VR art. We're going to go back into the VR app called Cool Paint. With an R, with no R, just R at the end, or R, which is really good for a Cornish person because we love to say R a lot. So yeah, we've got Cool Painter. Go and check that out. There's a few more already done for the past couple of weeks, and they're worth checking out. If you are a fan of Comic Historian and you've been listening to the previous videos, I'm going to listen to some more Comic Historian. Comic Historian will be reading us the Constantine, have you ever when you say it, his storyline. You're going to be listening to the origin of Constantine. If you haven't been keeping up, again, go and check the other videos. Otherwise, enjoy today's video. My name's Blut084, BLUT084. Art and games. I'm here every single day on YouTube, occasionally on Mixer, but every day and night over on Instagram. Keep up with the games in the evening if you're a gamer, and if you're an artist, always art in the daytime. Around about this time in the UK, it's about 1 o'clock I start, about 2 o'clock, 1 o'clock, and I always finish about 3 or 3 out of 3 because that's when my son comes home and I have to start doing dad things. Right, guys, so let's, without further ado, get that playlist going. I'll start going. You can start watching. If the PlayStation decided it was going to work. I hate this thing. If I don't have anything, I've got to use one screen. It's really annoying. I'm using my TV, in fact, for using it from the PC as well as using it for here. So play. Oh, I haven't got the turn. No wonder I haven't got the thing turned on.
Are you in need of an exorcist, demonologist, or master of the dark arts? Then you need John Constantine. Welcome to Origins, where we go over the origins of your favorite superheroes and villains. Today we're going to be looking at John Constantine and his New 52 origin, the one that is currently in continuity. But is this his origin? Is it all of these, or none? I'll let you decide. We open on 5 men in black cloaks standing around a summoning circle. In front of them is a being known as a legend breaker, a truth teller. And she asks, "What truth will you have?" So the man holding the book asks her to tell him the truth about John Constantine. What is his origin? Her arms flail as she looks around. Constantine, born in tragedy or born in celebration, or born in unremarkable circumstances. But another of the men steps forward. She's telling conflicting stories. And yet another one confirms, yes, this must be an interference spell, placed by Constantine himself. So they let her continue. Was Constantine born into tragedy, with his mother dead at childbirth? Or was he born into celebration, where his parents were proud and doting? Or maybe he just didn't matter, and he was the younger brother to a sister. He was either a troubled boy, destructive and cruel, a strange boy compelled by a force unnamed, or an ordinary boy, innocent and open-hearted. All of these led down one path, though. The day that Constantine either saw a demon looking for his pain, spoke to a demon wanting to help him, or was convinced to learn the dark arts by a demon. But the demon was there, and he had Constantine burn his family alive, be it his father, his parents, or his sister. The men stopped her right there. He burned his own family? Is that true? Yes, the first of many prices paid for power. From there, Constantine used his powers for trickery. Or maybe he ignored it, vowing to never call on these powers again. Or maybe he became the willing student, learning all that he could from this secret world. But all of these paths led to the day that he saw a young girl in trouble. The young girl was being tormented by a demon, and using the knowledge that he gained from his youth, he tried to save her, and he failed. She was doomed. The end result was either Constantine fleeing from the scene, being tried for the crimes committed there, or maybe he fled and was never found, but then collapsed into madness from having finally touched hell's flames. Or maybe he defeated the demon and claimed his place in a world of magic. The legend breaker, truth teller, begins to spin in circles and exclaims, "Thus, Constantine was made." But the men in cloaks all begin to feel ill, and they fall to the ground. The demon is beginning to kill the men. You would summon a power that you do not understand, and you cannot bind what you do not. And then Constantine enters. Oh, give it a rest. A legend breaker? I didn't think there were any of you left. Bloody nuisances. Well, you won't be having these souls. Off with you. No! I claimed these mystics. They failed to contain me. I bet you did. You told them what you are, right? But then you told them truth teller, and that's the only part that they listened to. The men's cloak began to fall off their heads, revealing nothing but children. These are kids. Either they found the book and they thought they'd have a lark, or maybe you broke the rules and put it in their hands, Constantine exclaims, pointing at her. They sought your hidden secrets. Yeah? Good for them. Now get out of here. The legend breaker then left, and Constantine took a drag from his cigarette as the kids got up and thanked him for saving them. We won't talk about your past. We'll keep it secret. Yeah? And which truth is that? What if none of what you saw is the truth of my origin? I'll tell you this much. You'll never know the secret origin of John Constantine. And with that, he leaves the room. That was a fun and interesting one, guys, because what it basically does is throw all of Constantine's origins on the table, and it says one of these works. But it doesn't matter because Constantine accomplishes his goals no matter what, right? We intend to do a few of Constantine's stories very soon, and I hope you're as excited about that as I am, because personally, I do enjoy Constantine. We've just never gotten to him. Follow us on Twitter at ComicStorian, and follow us on Instagram at ComicStorian, and I'll see you guys next time right here. NBC has just brought us a new Constantine television show. So aren't you a tad bit curious as to where this character got his starts in the comic books? Well, it's time for a Know Your Universe about John Constantine, and I'm going to warn you, the show seems to be following the plot from the book, so if you don't want to know where the show is going to potentially go, you might not want to watch this video. But if you're still here, let's go ahead and get to it. John was born on May 10th, 1953, and while giving birth to him and his twin brother, his mother died, and his twin brother was stillborn. His father would then blame him for his mother's death, and the two of them would grow to hate each other. John would then learn that his bloodline was that of the Laughing Magicians, legendary mages who had the power to bluff and trick the gods. Because his family is from this line of magic, John began to learn how to use magical abilities, and one of his first acts of magic was actually to lock away his childhood innocence so that it wouldn't bog him down. Later in the 60s, he ran from home after botching a curse and turning his father into a withered, frail man. And he would eventually end up living in London and rooming with his closest and longest surviving friend, Chaz. In the 1970s, he traveled around getting involved in more occult activities, hoping to hone his skills, and he eventually built a relationship with a female magician named Zatanna Zatara. But that's not one of the only things that he became obsessed with, as punk rock entered his life. He began to call himself Johnny Conjob, and he led a band named the Mucous Membrane. I'm not even making this stuff up, guys. While on tour with Mucous Membrane, he got his first taste of being a hero when he interrupted a magical orgy that went wrong, and he stumbled across the aftermath, an abused child named Astra. This child had summoned a demon to take revenge on the adults who had harmed her, but the demon wouldn't leave. In order to fight against his first demon, John convinced his band, Mucous Membrane, to summon their own demon to combat it. But the demon they summoned wasn't under their control after it defeated Astra's monster. The demon instead tormented John's friends, and it took the girl to hell with him. And this haunted John for years. He would end up in Raven's Claw Asylum to cope with what he had done, and eventually he would be strong enough to free her and the other children that the demon was keeping. John's next big adventure involved him meeting up with Swamp Thing, and the two of them became a sort of team. John acted as Swamp Thing's voice, protector, and guide, and he even taught Swamp Thing how to amplify his powers and allowed Swamp Thing to use his body in order to father a child named Tiffy. Eventually, they would also part ways, and John would contract lung cancer. Not having much to live for, he actually saved a friend from selling his soul by tricking the demon, known as the First, into drinking holy water. Once the demon drank the holy water, he ran into a problem where he was depowered and unable to collect the soul at the time of collection. For costing him a soul, the First told Constantine that he would make him suffer eternal torment once he died. So John hatched a plan to save himself and secretly sold his soul to two other demons in hell. Once the demons realized what he had done, they realized that he couldn't die because there would be an all-out war in hell over John Constantine's soul. So they decided to cure John of his cancer so that he wouldn't eventually die. This greatly irritated the First, and he hatched a plan to act his vengeance on John. Well, John still managed to defend himself, though he lost many of his friends in the final battle. Things get even crazier at this point, and it involved more of John's friends leaving, and eventually he has to actually blackmail God into keeping his own soul out of hell. The next adventure that he goes on involves him striking a deal with a demon who used him to father 3 demon children. The 3 children killed everyone that he knew, and even killed his own sister Cheryl. So John goes into the very depths of hell to get Cheryl back, but in the end he fails as the First struck a deal with Cheryl. You see, the First had tricked Cheryl's husband into killing her, and since her husband killed an innocent, he was damned to hell twice. The First deal with Cheryl was that if she stayed in hell willingly, she would take half the load off of her husband. The First then gloated over Constantine as he was sent back to the mortal plane with his sister damned in hell. What happens next is unsettling as John ends up back in Raven's Claw Asylum, which is the location he ended up after losing the child to the first earlier in his career. Well, he finds out that his soul is actually tied to the soul of his twin brother who was stillborn at birth. His brother was supposed to be the descendant of the laughing magicians, but John in the womb strangled his brother with the umbilical cord. So his brother's been trying to take control of John's life, and every time that he tried to take control, it caused all the bad things in John's life to happen. The cancer, his friends dying, his failed relationships, all of it is his unborn brother's fault. So John severed the tie to his brother's soul that he had, and he took control of his life finally. Time would go on, and John would eventually fake his own death so that he could vanish and keep a low profile so he could avoid harming those close to him. Then boom, all the DC publication lines were merged into one. We had a John Constantine in the mainstream DC books. With the New 52 launch, John Constantine got a slight rewrite. His first magical spell cost the life of both of his parents, and he burned his own house down. He's also part of the Justice League Dark, now along with Zatanna, and it's been implied that along with Nick Necro, there was a bit of a love triangle between them. Now, one interesting thing to note about John Constantine is that he is one of the only characters who aged in real time. Before the New 52 launch, I believe he was around the late 50s, early 60s. And as for his powers, it's all dark occult magic. Now for his appearances, he had a 2005 movie starring Keanu Reeves about him. And as many of you know, NBC has just started up their weekly television show. And that is a quick gist of the Hellblazer series that John Constantine started before coming to the New 52, and what it appears to be that NBC is copying right about now. Now, if you want my opinion about the new show, I actually really enjoyed the pilot, and I'm kind of excited to see where this show is going to go. But let me know in the comments down below what you thought of the pilot and what you think of John Constantine. Are you an old school John Constantine fan and you're upset about the New 52 relaunch and you don't want to see this NBC show ruin him? Or are you excited to see the direction that they're going to take this character? I'm Benny for Comic Story, and if you enjoyed this video, please like, favorite, share this video, and I'll see you next time right here.
All right, guys, it's Benny, and I'm standing here with Enrica, and she wants to tell you about her book. So what is The Killer Queen about?
Killer Queen is a collection of original comics inspired by the band Queen. 40 artists. The music band Queen.
Okay.
Freddie Mercury and the whole guy. 40 artists and writers were challenged to take their favorite Queen track and create an original comic inspired by the music. So we've got, again, 40 beautiful artists and writers in this lovely book.
Okay. Is it a consistent story, or is it individual short stories?
All individual stories, individual, completely original work.
Okay.
All of them.
Well, thank you for your time.
Thanks, guys.
And we'll be hitting the next booth now.
With the end of the world around him, what will John Constantine do? Now, before we begin, let me explain the Constantine and Constantine confusion. Constantine is his actual name. He's even stated that in a comic a while back, in which he stated that people saying Constantine are wrong. But in America, it was mispronounced Constantine early on, and the pronunciation then carried over into the movie and then was used in things such as the television show. Since we primarily have an American audience, I will be using the mispronounced American form. But be aware, anytime someone states Constantine, that's the proper way to say it. The multiverse is vast, with multiple versions of the superheroes you know and love. But in this multiverse, there is a new god named Dark Sun, and there is only one of him. As we discovered, he was given the universe Earth-2 to feed on, as long as he ignored the other universes. After a battle in the main universe, John Constantine found himself in the middle of Darkseid's destruction of Earth-2. This ties loosely into his appearances in the main series, but why he wasn't around towards the end, that's what we're going to cover. Constantine stands up surrounded by parademons, realizing that he isn't home any longer. Suddenly, a flash of light forms around him, killing all of the parademons, and in front of him is Watan, one of Dr. Fate's villains. He tells Constantine that he knows that he is a world walker, capable of leaving this dimension, and since this world is ending, he would like to leave now. Constantine pulls out a trinket to try and fight back, but Watan destroys it in his hands, leaving him with very little options. Meanwhile, over in Liverpool, England, the John Constantine of this world is sitting with his friends, having a final pint before the end of the world. They all comment how they won't get to live their lives, and this is truly the end. And that's when John stands up and he braces himself on the table. Over with Constantine, he feels the same wooziness and he hits the ground. Look at what Watani asks him. What did you call me? World Walker? So Wotan explains that Constantine has crossed between the universes, walking the road of the gods to this dying world. He then grabs a hold of Constantine, and he realizes that Constantine couldn't have sent himself here. Some truly powerful magician must have. Wotan begins to cast a spell on him to turn him into the gateway, but Constantine offers up an alternative. He claims that he knows how to cast the spell, so if Wotan lets him live, he can make things a lot easier and he doesn't have to die. Wotan is suspicious, but he does agree. Meanwhile, over in Liverpool, John hits the ground in an immense amount of pain. Constantine, back with Wotan, puts his feet on the ground, lights a cigarette, and he begins to start the incantation. While in Liverpool, John begins to clutch his chest. The spell begins to open up a gateway through Constantine all the way to John. And seeing his escape from this doomed world, Wotan begins to pass through it. But since there are 2 John Constantines in this world, the gateway is looping back on itself, and Wotan is on his way to Liverpool, creating a bridge from Constantine to John. Then Constantine begins to close the gateway with Wotan halfway through it, cutting him in half, with his head bouncing off the ground in front of John and his friends. Using Wotan's blood, Constantine starts to prepare some magic, because with 2 John Constantines in one place, he honestly has no idea what will happen if he tries to leave this world. He will need all of John Constantine, both halves, in one spot, so he comes up with a plan. Thus, Constantine's journey begins on Earth 2. He steals a car and he begins to drive to the location of John. And while he's going there, he tells himself with fire burning around him and the skies as dark as night that this isn't hell. He's in another universe. None of this is real. Don't stop and help anyone. Just get to your other half and get off of this world. He sees people being beaten down and cars exploding and people in dire straits, but he tells himself, ignore it. It's not real. Get up this world, Constantine. He drives as the moon breaks apart and it begins to fall around him, bringing meteors to the ground. Constantine swerves out of the way, but one of the meteors crash lands right next to him and he smashes his head on the windshield. In a dreamy haze, you can see 2 eyes, the sign of fate. They tell him to get to Liverpool and ignore everything. Fate will meet him there. He wakes back up and he holds a cold rag to his forehead. In front of him was another car, one that he saw earlier with a young girl in the back seat. And when he looks up, the back seat door is open. Constantine knew that this wasn't good, but he also knew that this girl wasn't real. He shouldn't save her. Be a waste of his time. Tries to convince himself to drive away. Ignore this, but he can't. He just couldn't do it. He took her headphones that were in the back seat and he followed the trail into a field where he saw her dead body. And the murderer standing with a gun. He forced the murderer to shoot himself in the head, and then he left. He drove until he ran out of gas and then he walked. And eventually, he found himself in his old town with the old house with the same white door. He knocked on it and the door was opened by his father. And inside he saw his father, his old friends, and John the doppelganger. John gets up off the couch and he lunges at this imposter. But once he touches Constantine, they see each other's lives. And John knows what this is. It's an alternate version of him. And this version of him is a wonder, a superhero. He can save them all. So Constantine sits with his alternate world family and he tells them that he's going to save them all. And at that moment, the doors and the windows break open and random thugs come crashing in. So Constantine hits the streets telling everyone to run and follow him. They run the men in SWAT outfits launching tear gas. But as they pull through it together, they make their way to an old brick factory. There, Constantine gets himself all bandaged up and he explains how bad this really is. Darkseid is known for his cruel nature, and he won't allow anyone to escape. So he needs to place a protection circle on the ground, one to save them all before he can cast the spell to get everyone out of this dimension. The problem is, though, there are 2 John Constantines, and it's continuing to ruin Constantine's magic. So they put down the protection circles, and Constantine explains to everyone that if they do this, there will be a cost, and no one knows what it is, but there will always be a cost that they'll have to pay. And once they start, it'll summon anyone in tune with magic to their location. Once he starts his spells, it begins to work right away, because Dr. Fate arrives, asking to speak with the World Walker. He lands in front of everyone, demanding that Constantine open the door. This planet is under siege, but Constantine hesitates. He knows what he'll need to do, and he isn't sure if he should. He has to kill his doppelganger or himself. If he kills his doppelganger, he'll be killing a better man than himself. But if he kills himself, he'll be doing it to save the alternate world versions of his family. Is it worth it? Are they real? He ponders this while taking a drag off his cigarette, and Fate sees what's going on. The 2 John Constantine souls are intertwined. He offers Constantine the use of the helmet of fate. If he puts it on, he can untangle their souls and save everyone. But this would just make Constantine a slave to Naboo, just as Khalid is underneath that helmet right now. He isn't ready to give himself up to Naboo and the helmet. At that moment, the parademons begin to crash through the ceiling, and Fate begins to use everything he has to try and stop it. While blasting the parademons, John of Earth 2 puts it together, and he asks Constantine, is it me? Am I the one causing the problems? Everyone starts to fall around him, the family that he never had, the good people. And it's all because Constantine won't kill himself. He knows what he should do, but will he? Will he do it? Or will he take the helmet? But Constantine is not a good man, and he decides no. He takes the knife and he stabs his doppelganger in the stomach, ending his life. As the John of Earth 2 hits the ground, the portal begins to open, and in a flash of light, Constantine and his Earth 2 family teleport away, leaving fate there, cursing them for leaving him behind. He protected them. John's family comes to Constantine's side, realizing that this doppelganger killed their son, and they tell Constantine that they will make him pay. But he tells them, there is a price! I told you that there would be! As they try to kill Constantine, the spell continues, and in an explosion, Constantine finds himself on a glowing platform between the realms, carrying himself and the family to the proper Earth. Finally having enough of this, he tells them to stay down while he saves them, and they tell him that they don't care. He killed the best man that they knew. The disc flies past heaven itself, and they see it under siege in this realm. Darkseid is trying to conquer Earth to ensure no one on Earth 2 is safe, and they will have nowhere to go but apocalypse in their death. In a turn of events, fate sends up chains to grab them, demanding that they do not leave him on this doomed planet. The hooks dig into Constantine's back and his Earth 2 mother and father. Fate tries to convince Constantine to become one with him again, telling him that together they could save everyone. But if Constantine stays alone, he will lose them one by one. He jumps over, getting the hook out of his own back, and then he saves his father. But as he tries to save his Earth 2 mother, he watches her get dragged off of the disc and down onto the doomed world. Again, his Earth 2 family is distraught. They are losing people all over the place to save what? Themselves? Is it even worth it? How could Constantine think that they would want this? Ride brings them past the Green, under assault by the parademons, and then past the Rot, also doomed, and they see all of the realms tied to Earth 2, and they see that Darkseid is about to rule everything. They aren't home free yet. Constantine begins to feel something in his mind, something giving him a headache, and it's something that sees him, something that they didn't want to follow them through this journey. As they arrive at the proper Earth that Constantine started for, with a multitude of survivors that he managed to pick up with his spell, the voice reveals itself to be Darkseid himself. Just a hand through the road between worlds. His hand reaches out for Constantine, demanding to know where he's gone. But that's when something else gets his attention. What world is this? Where did Constantine take everyone? Constantine starts to drop the other survivors into Darkseid's path as decoys, and then he realizes he needs to perform one last trick. It's the only way to save who he can. He lets his magic consume him, and he lets it take over his entirety. And then John Constantine died in space as he threw all of the survivors to the planet Earth. But it's not the truth. He used everything he had for one last trick. He made Darkseid think that this universe was one that he had already conquered, and that it was a dead universe. But once he saw Constantine dead and the universe consumed, Darkseid turned away. Constantine himself floated through space, and then he entered the orbit of the planet, and he came crashing down next to his Earth 2 family. His alternate Earth 2 father pulls a gun on him, and he tells him to look at him so that he can shoot him. And Constantine turns to him, telling him, I saved you, yeah? I never did anything with my sodden life, but I did this. And his alternate father tells him, you didn't save Marianne, and since you didn't, I would rather be dead. So Constantine takes the gun, and he holds it to his forehead. I told you, if we did this, it would cost us something. Everything costs something. So do it. Pull the bloody trigger. His alternate father turns away. He can't do it. So the alternate John's girlfriend walks over, takes the gun, telling everyone that she can do it, and she pulls the trigger. But it was another trick. John Constantine teleported away to the nearby cliffside. The Earth 2 family looked around, and they saw that the other survivors that he had saved had made it. They decided that it was time to figure out what to do next. They were safe from Darkseid, and Constantine looked down from the cliffside that he was on at the beach that they were standing on before lighting a cigarette. He went back to New York to take a seat at the bar, because the life of John Constantine is as crappy as it will always be. And this is what happened to John Constantine while he was on Earth 2. I hope you guys enjoyed this. And don't forget, if you want more comic books, check out our gaming channel, because every Friday we launch gaming comic books. And don't forget to check out Manga Storian, where we release manga videos every Monday and Friday. And lastly, we are on Twitter at Comic Storian and Instagram at Comic Storian, and I'll see you guys next time right here.
We're going to just watch another one, or listen to another one, because I'm about to let it go. Ha! So you'll have an advert or two. Hopefully you're checking out what I'm getting up to, guys, and you're enjoying it. Just using different pens. I'm using a highlighter pen right now to give the wings a little bit of a highlight.
The multiverse is vast, containing multiple versions of your favorite superheroes on different worlds, fighting their own battles. In the universe of Earth 2, Darkseid took control of the planet, and the survivors had to flee into space, while many of our heroes died in the final battle against him. While many would consider the loss of our heroes and their planet the end of the story, it is only the beginning, really. Over in a version of Gotham where a great injustice has been done, Superman hovers over Batman. You ignored me! You ignored my final warnings! And now you want my help? You finally get your powers back and you come back here to make us beg? Batman asks him. And then Batman tells Superman to look around. Look at the city. All around them, Gotham is in ruins and it is burning. What is the point of being invincible if there is no one left in your city to lead? Help us defeat whatever this is, Superman. But as Batman is asking for help, a volcano opens up beneath our heroes, swallowing them up and leaving Superman alone. He takes off in the skies. I could have saved you, but the destruction of this city will be a reminder of those who have turned against me. Then, a giant hand made out of the earth itself reaches out and grabs Superman, crushing him. A voice over everything simply says, "A failed experiment. My master was wrong to bring them here. I must begin again." Elsewhere on this weird world, there's an electrical sound and a portal opening. Out of the sky falls Thomas Wayne Batman, questioning, "Where on it? Not Earth. Apocalypse?" Then Dick Grayson, the writer, falls out behind Thomas Wayne. Batman throws a grappling line out to catch Dick Grayson's hand, and they both land softly on the ground, and Grayson asks him, "What's going on? Did we die?" And Thomas tells him, "Not yet. You see, when Earth 2 was finally defeated, these were the heroes that were left on the planet's surface, and they supposedly were killed by Darkseid's Omega beams." The portal opens again, and Jay Garrick the Flash falls behind them. And then we see Scott, the Green Lantern, and Val Zod, the last son of Krypton of Earth 2. Batman figures it out quickly. Just as Darkseid was killing them, they must have been teleported here instead. Only they knew where here was. Grayson punches Batman across the face. Because on Earth 2, Grayson wasn't a superhero. He was a husband and a father, and he just lost his family. He points at the Earth 2 heroes, and he tells them, "You failed! You failed everyone that I loved!" So the Flash grabs him and tells him, "Shut it! You're not the only one who lost people. My mother is up in space right now trying to find a new home, and we'll never see her again." Then a hand pops out of the ground asking for help, and it's Yolanda Montez, the Red Avatar of Earth 2. Our heroes quickly put it together. Somehow they have survived, and they are now on this world. Maybe they can still save everyone. If you want to know the long journey that brought our heroes of Earth 2 here, the link is down below. Suddenly, the entire planet begins to attack them, with things coming out of the ground. Our heroes begin to battle against it, and as they fight, they realize what is happening. It's making a dome over them, and it's taking away their powers. Val Zod quickly freezes the potential dome, stopping it in its tracks, and someone shouts, "Intruder!" There in front of our heroes is the being behind all.
Hi guys, I don't listen to this. This is a Superman story, so I'm going to try and find some more Constantine. Give me a second.
And they are the only ones left.
Hopefully enjoying this. You can see I've put in all the pen for the background now. All that needs left is to have the Constantine coloured in. I don't know what colour to put him in yet, but we'll find something.
NBC has just brought us a new Constantine television show. So aren't you a tad bit curious as to where this character got his starts in the comic books? Well, it's time for a Know Your Universe about John Constantine, and I'm going to warn you, the show seems to be following the plot from the book, so if you don't want to know where the show is going to potentially go, you might not want to watch this video.
Okay, so we'll have this then, I suppose.
How did Constantine even get involved in injustice? Welcome to the Complete Story Series, where I take trade paperbacks and single issues, and I break them down into digestible ways to help you understand. Then I reduce dramatically back to you. All alterations to the panels, text, and images are to prevent copyright problems, and all art is owned by its respective companies. Injustice Year 5 is being paced down differently, making it last a little longer than we intended. So while we wait for it to end, we're going to be looking at some of the side stories that I skipped over during the entire series. This time, it's going to be how did Constantine even get involved? This story takes place between the years 2 and 3, and it's before the first issues of Year 3. And the story, shockingly, doesn't begin with Constantine. Batman had an idea, so he sought out Dr. Occult. Dr. Occult is an individual deep in the mystical side of the DC universe, and is actually two individuals sharing a body, Rose and Dr. Occult himself. Batman sought out Rose because she is Dr. Occult, and his plan is simple. Superman is vulnerable to magic, so why not use that against him? But in order for it to work, he'll need to remove two problems, Raven and Wonder Woman. Batman approached Rose and told her that he's both Rose and Dr. Occult, and she turns around, instantly turning into Dr. Occult. Anything you say to me, you say to both of us, literally, Batman. We're at your service. I give you my word. So he sets off on his mission, going to Georgetown first, meeting with Baron Winters. While meeting with the Baron, another individual is standing in the back of the room, John Constantine. He opens what Dr. Occult is planning, and once Baron Winters tries to convince the doctor not to go through with it, Constantine turns around. Let him do what he wants. He's a big boy and a big girl. I'd have half a mind to throw into them and take down Old Blue. If only he'd asked nicely. But Dr. Occult informs Constantine, I would never ask for your help. You'd most likely leave me in a trance with my pockets picked. Constantine defends himself, though. That was only once, mate. You'd think that I'd be fool enough to try that again? And so, Dr. Occult continued his journey. His trip brought him to Cairo to get the Blade of Durga, New Athens to get the living sphere from the Enchantress, to the Twilight Realm to trade the sphere to the court of the fairy, and eventually, Metropolis, where he began to draw ruins on the wall. He walks into the sanctum of Raven herself, surrounded by hellfire, and sensing that something is off, she begins to throw the hellfire at Dr. Occult. He begins to pull out a gem that hits her hard, but the hellfire has burned Dr. Occult alive, separating him from Rose, throwing her to the ground. But Constantine has been following behind this whole time, and as Raven prepares to finish off Rose, he grabs the gem and he hits her with it. With Raven unconscious, Rose looks over at the body of Dr. Occult and sees him dead, turned to bone. Constantine pulls out a cigarette. Rose, we both know you won't live long without it, so you can do one thing. You can finish the job. Go to Themyscira and finish off Wonder Woman. You need to fight like a proper mage and keep your word. Rose agrees, and she begins to create a teleportation spell while Constantine gets back to his feet. I'll wrap up Raven and try to pull the doctor out from the other side. But if I save him, you owe me. If I survive, Constantine, Rose says, leaving. Then he flicks his cigarette to the ground. He then wraps up Raven in the center of a circle with another symbol on her, binding her in place. And in the home of Wonder Woman, Rose sneaks in. And as Wonder Woman wakes up, she throws dust into Wonder Woman's face, putting her to sleep. Then, as Rose begins to die finally, she knows that she needs to vanish. There needs to be no trace in Themyscira that she was there. Otherwise, they'll figure out what she did to Wonder Woman and they'll break the spell. So she warps herself to a random island out in the middle of nowhere, and using her last spell, she calls up Batman. Batman, the job is done. Raven is neutralized. Wonder Woman sleeps helplessly. And we won't survive. Don't trust. And then she dies. Batman just calls back, Doctor, who don't I trust? Who don't I trust? As she falls face first into the sand, Constantine appears behind her, rifles through her pockets, taking all of her trinkets, and then he stands up, lighting a cigarette. Your trinkets should be more than enough to hide me and keep me from getting involved in this fight. Don't get me wrong, I think you were doing the right thing. The Kryptonian made a mess of this world, but I'm a family man now. Rest in peace, Doctor. We're both out of this war now. Now, immediately following this, you can go ahead and watch the beginning of year 3, and you'll see how Constantine did end up getting involved in the battle. Hope you guys enjoyed this, and I hope you guys are enjoying these little side stories while we wait for year 5 to end. Don't forget to check out the rest of the Injustice playlist, subscribe to get more Injustice news, and I'll see you guys next time right here. Follow me on Twitter at ComicStorian. Have a good day.
Have a good day now.
I've seen things you wouldn't believe. I've flown through the skies with eagles. I've seen the power of creation, and I want more. The new Smithsonian Channel. Experience.
Shut up.
Welcome to the beginning of Injustice Year 5. Welcome to the Complete Story Series, where I take trade paperbacks and single issues and I break them down into digestible bites to help you understand. Then I read it dramatically back to you. All alterations to the panels, text, and images are to prevent copyright problems, and all art is owned by its respective companies. So stupid. So selfish. Plastic Man had the audacity to stage a prison break for his son, and in the process, he freed every villain on Earth, setting Superman's regime back to square one. You see, this is year 5 of the Injustice saga. Joker tricked Superman into killing Lois Lane and his unborn child. Superman then decided to end all war and conflict, which Batman was against. Thus began a battle. Batman versus Superman that has now gone on for years. First, they got the Lanterns involved. Happy holidays from us here at ComicStorian. Happy holidays from us here at ComicStorian.
Let's see what it brings up.
NBC has just brought us a new Constantine television show.
Oh my
so
God!
Aren't you a tad bit curious as to where this character got hit?
No.
Why was John Constantine kicked out of London in the first place? Welcome to the Complete Story Series. I take trade paperbacks and single issues and I break them down into digestible bites to help you understand. Then I read it dramatically back to you. All alterations to the panels, text, and images are to prevent copyright problems, and all art is owned by its respective companies. This is a rebirth, a DC rebirth. It is not a reboot, it is a new status quo as DC brings back the things that you loved about your favorite superheroes, putting them back into the existing timeline. We're going to be showcasing select issues of the Rebirth to let you know some starting points for these series. Each of these Rebirth comics is continued in the mainline book of the same name. This is Hellblazer Rebirth. In the beginning of the New 52, we got John Constantine in the mainstream DC universe, and we learned that he was kicked out of London, and we don't know why. Well, some years ago, he was in a battle with a demon that held him helplessly over the ground. In typical John fashion, even with death staring him in the face, he taunted the demon and lit a cigarette. The demon told him to prepare for the plains of Cerberus, and John told him, "What if you're sending me down to where there are a few souls waiting to get revenge on you? Do you really want me down there with them?" The demon thought it out and decided he had a better idea. He would banish John from London so that he couldn't muck up his plans again. But now, John has come home, and Chaz is right there waiting for him. The first thing he asked John was if he's back for good, because he remembers why John left. The curse that was on him was that if he didn't leave London, his soul would leave without him. But this time, John has a plan, and as the sneezing begins, he begins an enchantment. Elsewhere, someone else proficient in the magical arts senses him summoning her, and she wants to know what is Constantine up to this time. Chaz brought John to the middle of London where he drew a magical circle, only to have the Laughing Boy demon grab him by the ankles and foot. The demon wants to know what made John think that a simple spell like that would allow him to track the demon. But John wasn't done. While upside down, he took out the sword, cutting himself, and then dripped the blood into the circle that activated it. The circle appears over the city of London, and it begins to hit while the demon is laughing at John. You see, John just deflected the curse that was over him onto the entirety of London, where it will continue to spread from mortal to mortal until no one can be in London without dying. John, you've become your own typhoid Mary. Is that so? Because collecting a few souls here and there, that's one thing. But is hell really ready to collect 8 million at once? My guess is that it'll push your little operation to the brink. The fate of the entire city is in your hands, and you choose to play a game of chicken with a demon? One thing you'll find about us fleshbacks is that we're right stubborn bastards. The magical individual that sensed Constantine earlier began to move to her motorcycle, telling herself, Constantine wins again. And elsewhere, Wonder Woman and Shazam are looking for someone that can help them understand a man named Constantine's actions, Swamp Thing. Wonder Woman asks him to stop Constantine, and Swamp Thing tells her that he trusts Constantine. Back with the man himself, though, the demon is going on a speech about claiming all of the city by daybreak, but John isn't listening. He was too busy eating a bhaji and sipping on his black label. And that's when the Laughing Boy decides that this makes sense. Constantine has sent plenty of souls to hell. That's 8 million more. Any particular soul in mind, Laughing Boy? Oh, right. There's been so many. It happens a lot. Maybe the twin brother that you killed in your womb? Old information. Or the mother that you killed being born. That's a low blow even for you. Oh, but there's one soul that keeps you awake at night, isn't there, Constantine? Go on. A young magician starting out in over his head, and a young girl named Astrid paid the price, didn't she? We both know that you could have offered up your soul in her place, but you didn't, did you? Remove the spell, and I'll give you back the one soul that you spent your life trying to redeem yourself for. You're lying. Then the girl on the motorcycle rides up. Bloody hell, talk about cutting it down to the wire. Thanks for your kind offer, Laughing Boy, but leave the con game to the wise. Me and Mercury. She walks over and John tells her, I'd love to introduce you to the demon, but I don't know his name. His name is Nivag. The demon is shocked. No. How does she know? See, you were right. I was playing a game of chicken, but I wasn't playing it with you. Mercury is a psychic, and I was wondering if she would come here to help me or see the city burn. In the end, John won, and he was back in London finally. So now what's going to happen to our exorcist, demonologist, and master of the dark arts? It's going to be interesting to see John Constantine back where he belongs in London, but still a part of the DC universe. Let me know what you think of that down below in the comments, and how you feel about a kind of censored John Constantine, because they definitely censored all the swears in this book. I'm Benny the Comic Historian. You can follow me on Twitter at Comic Historian and Instagram at Comic Historian, and I'll see you next time right here.
No. Shut up.
With the end of the world around him, what will John Constantine do? Now, before we begin, let me explain the Constantine and Constantine confusion. Constantine is his actual name. He's even stated that in a comic a while back, in which he stated that people saying Constantine are wrong. But in America, it was mispronounced to be Constantine early on. The pronunciation then carried over into the movie, and then was used in such as the television show. Since we primarily have an
I'm not sure what color it needs.
The mispronounced American form. But be aware, anytime someone states Constantine, that's the proper way to say it. The multiverse is vast.
We've got a few
versions of the superheroes you know and love. But in this multiverse,
I don't know if I need any color on Constantine other than what I've already got.
As we discovered, he was given the universe Earth 2 to feed on as long as he ignored the other universes. After a battle in the main universe, John Constantine found himself in the middle of Darkseid's destruction of Earth 2. This ties loosely into his appearances in the main series, but why he wasn't around towards the end, that's what we're going to cover. Constantine stands up surrounded by parademons, realizing that he isn't home any longer. Suddenly, a flash of light forms around him, killing all of the parademons, and in front of him is Wotan, one of Dr. Fate's villains. He tells Constantine that he knows that he is a world walker, capable of leaving this dimension, and since this world is ending, he would like to leave now. Constantine pulls out a trinket to try and fight back, but Wotan destroys it in his hands, leaving him with very little options. Meanwhile, over in Liverpool, England, the John Constantine of this world is sitting with his friends, having a final pint before the end of the world. They all comment how they won't get to live their lives, and this is truly the end. And that's when John stands up and he braces himself on the table. Over with Constantine, he feels the same wooziness and he hits the ground. Looking up at Wotan, he asks him,
Okay.
"What did you call me? World Walker?" So Wotan explains that Constantine is
looking at it, I
between
don't
the universes,
think there's
walking
much
the road
else
of
I
the
need to be
gods
putting
to
in
the
here.
dying world. He then grabs a hold of Constantine and he realizes that Constantine couldn't have sent himself here. Some truly powerful magician must have. Wotan begins to cast a spell on him to turn him into Gateway, but Constantine offers up an alternative. He claims that he knows how to cast the spell, so if Wotan lets him live, he can make things a whole lot easier and he doesn't have to die. Wotan is suspicious, but he does agree. Meanwhile, over in Liverpool, John hits the ground in an immense amount of pain. Constantine, back with Wotan, puts his feet on the ground, lights a cigarette, and he begins to start the incantation. While in Liverpool, John begins to clutch his chest. The spell begins to open up a gateway through Constantine all the way to John. And seeing his escape from this doomed world, Wotan begins to pass through it. But since there are two John Constantines in this world, the gateway is looping back on itself, and Wotan is on his way to Liverpool, creating a bridge from Constantine to John. Then Constantine begins to close the gateway with Wotan halfway through it, cutting him in half, with his head bouncing off the ground in front of John and his friends. Using Wotan's blood, Constantine starts to prepare some magic, because with two John Constantines in one place, he honestly has no idea what will happen if he tries to leave this world. He will need all of John Constantine, both halves, in one spot, so he comes up with a plan. And thus, Constantine's journey begins on Earth 2.
Okay,
He steals the card and begins to drive to the location of John.
to...
And while he's going there, he tells himself with fire burning around him, and the skies as dark as
I don't
night.
know, but these
This
eyes,
isn't
I
happening.
keep
This is
seeing
another
these
universe.
eyes and
None of
thinking,
this is
should
real.
I change
Don't
them?
stop
Should
and
I
help
put
anyone.
them the
Just get to
same
your other half
way?
and get off of this
What do I
world.
do?
He sees people being beat down and cars exploding and people in dire straits, but he tells himself, ignore it. It's not real. Get off this world.
I'm gonna get some
Constantine.
pencils,
He drives
guys,
as the
and give
moon
it a
breaks
shape
apart, and he
instead
begins
of
to
a pen.
fall around him, bringing meteors to the ground. Constantine swerves out of the way, but one of the meteors crash lands right next to him, and he smashes his head on the windshield. In a dreamy haze, you can see two eyes, the sign of fate. They tell him to get to Liverpool and ignore everything. Fate will meet him there. He wakes back up and he holds a cold rag to his forehead. In front of him was another car, one that he saw earlier with a young girl in the back seat. And when he looks up, the back seat door is open. Constantine knew that this wasn't real, but he also knew that this girl wasn't real. He shouldn't save her. Be a waste of his time. Tries to convince himself to drive away. Ignore this, but he can't. He just couldn't do it. He took her headphones that were in the back seat and he followed the trail into a field where he saw her dead body. And the murderer standing there with a gun. He forced the murderer to shoot himself in the head, and then he left. He drove until he ran out of gas, and then he walked. And eventually, he found himself in his old town, with the old house, with the same white door. He knocked on it, and the door was opened by his father, and inside he saw his father, his old friends, and John the doppelganger. John gets up off the couch and he lunges at this imposter. But once he touches Constantine, they see each other's lives. And John knows what this is. It's an alternate version of him. And this version of him is a wonder, a superhero. He can save them all. So Constantine sits with his alternate world family and he tells them that he's going to save them all. And at that moment, the doors and the windows break open and random thugs come crashing in. So Constantine hits the streets telling everyone to run and follow him. They run into men in SWAT outfits launching tear gas. But as they pull through it together, they make their way to an old brick factory. There, Constantine gets himself all bandaged up and he explains how bad this really is. Darkseid is known for his cruel nature, and he won't allow anyone to escape. So he needs to place a protection circle on the ground, one to save them all before he can cast the spell to get everyone out of this dimension. The problem is, though, there are two John Constantines, and it's continuing to ruin Constantine's magic. So they put down the protection circles, and Constantine explains to everyone that if they do this, there will be a cost, and no one knows what it is, but there will always be a cost that they'll have to pay. And once they start, it'll summon anyone in tune with magic to their location. Once he starts his spells, it begins to work right away because Dr. Fate arrives, asking to speak with the World Walker. He lands in front of everyone, demanding that Constantine open the door. This planet is under siege, but Constantine hesitates. He knows what he'll need to do, and he isn't sure if he should. He has to kill his doppelganger or himself. If he kills his doppelganger, he'll be killing a better man than himself. But if he kills himself, he'll be doing it to save the alternate world versions of his family. Is it worth it? Are they real? He ponders this while taking a drag off his cigarette, and Fate sees what's going on. The two John Constantine's souls are intertwined. He offers Constantine the use of the Helmet of Fate. If he puts it on, he can untangle their souls and save everyone. But this will just make Constantine a slave to Naboo, just as Khalid is underneath that helmet right now. He isn't ready to give himself up to Naboo and the helmet. At that moment, the parademons begin to crash through the ceiling, and Fate begins to use everything he has to try and stop it. While blasting the parademons, John of Earth 2 puts it together, and he asks Constantine, "Is it me? Am I the one causing the problems?" Everyone starts to fall around him, the family that he never had, the good people, and it's all because Constantine won't kill himself. He knows what he should do, but will he? Will he do it? Or will he take the helmet? But Constantine is not a good man, and he decides no. He takes the knife and he stabs his doppelganger in the stomach, ending his life. As the John of Earth 2 hits the ground, the portal begins to open, and in a flash of light, Constantine and his Earth 2 family teleport away, leaving Fate there, cursing them for leaving him behind. He protected them. John's family comes to Constantine's side, realizing that this doppelganger killed their son, and they tell Constantine that they will make him pay. But he tells them, "There is a price! I told you that there would be." As they try to kill Constantine, the spell continues, and in an explosion, Constantine finds himself on a glowing platform between the realms, carrying himself and the family to the proper Earth. Finally having enough of this, he tells them to stay down while he saves them, and they tell him that they don't care. He killed the best man that they knew. The disc flies past heaven itself, and they see it under siege in this realm. Darkseid is trying to conquer Earth to ensure no one on Earth 2 is safe, and they will have nowhere to go but Apocalypse in their death. And in a turn of events, Fate sends up chains to grab them, demanding that they do not leave him on this doomed planet. The hooks dig into Constantine's back and his Earth 2 mother and father. Fate tries to convince Constantine to become one with him again, telling him that together they could save everyone, but if Constantine stays alone, he will lose them one by one. He jumps over, getting the hook out of his own back, and then he saves his father. But as he tries to save his Earth 2 mother, he watches her get dragged off of the disc and down onto the doomed world. Again, his Earth 2 family is distraught. They are losing people all over the place to save what? Themselves? Is it even worth it?
Is it even worth it? I think it was a bit worth it today, guys. I do apologize that we listened to the same story a few times. There's kind of limited amount of stuff for Constantine. If he's not already sort of part in, if he's in a comic. Generally, he's in the comic with somebody else. It's how it seems to work with Constantine. But anyway, we've done Constantine this week, as you voted on Sunday last week for a Constantine picture. I do apologize. I couldn't get what's his name, Keanu Reeves' likeness. I did really try, and I just sort of towards the end I kind of give up because I just couldn't do it, and I wanted to get a picture finished before the day. I did do a little tweak on the shading yesterday because I wanted to put a little bit more detail in there, and bits more that I sat down with a book and started doodling, kind of like I did before I started a Monday sketch. If again you didn't see last Monday or this Monday's sketch, go and check them out. They are on the page or up on my channel, where I sketched on a Monday, Tuesday I'll ink, and then Wednesday is today. And we've coloured it in with a bit of Copic marker pen, a slight bit of shading on the skin for his skin tone with pencil, but everything else is all done in ink. So hopefully you have enjoyed this, guys. There will be more coming soon. Don't forget to hit subscribe and ding the bell. My name's Blut084, BLUT084, art and games. And tonight we'll be playing some more games called Witness Wednesday, because it's Wednesdays, and every Wednesday we go back to the world of Witness and try and figure out a few more puzzles. If you think you can help me, don't forget to join me later on by dinging the bell. Otherwise, click the links that will appear if you're watching back. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time. Tomorrow will be VR art, and Friday will be more sculpting and making fridge magnets of this week's theme. No idea how I'm going to do that, so don't forget to tune in. Bye.
Bye for now.